Being a kid in the 2000s was awesome. The Scholastic Book Fair, the best seasons of SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents, Yu-Gi-Oh! Ruled the World, and so much more.
Watch those wrist rockets!
But it wasn't all rays and sunshine. During those formative times, some of the media I consumed stuck with me for years. Decades even. Things that irreparably altered my brain chemistry. So today's video is equal parts a therapy session and a confessional. Now strap on or strap in, we're going in deep. I won't be able to do this by myself though, so thankfully, I will be joined by my therapist, Omni-Man.
I'm in a bad mood today.
Haha, isn't he great? So, let's get started. Now, you may be thinking that I'll be talking about shows like Ren and Stimpy or Courage the Cowardly Dog, but those are too basic. We already know that kids got traumatized by that. So I'm going to talk about some things that traumatized me specifically. Every generation has their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but for me, the first time I watched the Turtles was a 2003 show. Now honestly, I don't remember almost anything from the show. That was too long ago, except for one scene. This scene comes from the episode The Darkness Within in Season 3. Now okay, this episode is kind of crazy. 1,000 years ago, a meteorite fell to Earth, bringing a creature that lures greedy people to its side. However, the Native Americans were too strong and couldn't be put under its thrall, and made a spear out of the meteorite that could kill the creature. Since the Native Americans weren't affected by its influence, it called out to Europeans instead, who sailed over, killed the indigenous people, and took all the gold. So now, this guy, C.F. Volpahart, got super wealthy, built a tower in New York where the creature now lives in the basement of the building. The creature living there is the reason why Wall Street is the financial capital of the US, apparently. A lot of weird lore going on here.
Oh my god.
I know, right? So Volpahart's descendant gives them the spear to kill the creature because he was too weak to do it himself. Along the way, the turtles fight skeletons, tentacles, and...
What is that?
So every turtle gets put into a pod that puts them through their worst fears and nightmares. For Donatello, it's losing a loved one. For Michelangelo, it's being betrayed by his brothers. For Raph, it's the Dagobah cave scene from episode 5.
Yummy!
Leonardo wakes up in a pod and is rescued by Splinter. Then Splinter dies from tentacles.
No!
Also, this show is brutal. I thought they were going to cut away or just show him falling, but no. They showed the life being crushed out of him. Anyway, Leo wakes up again in the pod, only to be rescued by Splinter again. But this time, Splinter has red eyes, which we all know means he's a bad guy.
Are you sure?
They fight, and then Splinter just kind of jumps on Leo's sword. We don't see the sword go all the way through though, but we see it pushing his shirt back because that's censorship, I guess? Honestly, I think it would have been better if I just saw the sword coming out the other side. They even have squishy blood sounds, and the sword is visibly in his chest. You're telling me the only problem was the sword coming out of the back? I don't know why this bothered me so much as a 6-year-old, but it really did. I literally stopped watching the show because of this. Again, the whole episode is really creepy, but for some reason, the sword not penetrating the shirt really got to me.
You serious?
Can I finish, please?
You might want to change.
Anyway, the creature is literally if Cthulhu and a lobster had a baby. This apparently didn't traumatize me as a kid, but it sure does now. It literally has 2 vaginas on its face. And it turns out that the Volpahart descendant wasn't actually a descendant, but Volpahart himself. So once Red Thulu died, his curse was lifted and he disintegrated. Again, you'd think watching someone just turn to a skeleton and then dust would be traumatic for a 6-year-old, but I don't recall that at all. I literally only remember the sword. All in all, it's kind of a crazy yet cool episode. It was very obviously inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, but I was really too young to appreciate it. Let's move on to the next cartoon.
Life has been soft and painless.
I was 8 when I first saw Superman the Animated Series episode, Unity. And it's really similar to the Turtles episode? Tell me if you've heard this one before. A creature from outer space has power over the minds of people, and it has tentacles and looks kind of like Cthulhu. I'm starting to see a trend here. In this episode, Supergirl discovers that Smallville has been taken over by an old-timey reverend who spreads the message of unity. How does this message spread? Well, by tentacles, of course. Except these tentacles are nastier than the ones the Turtles faced. And they go inside everyone's mouths? What? I don't know. Maybe I have a problem with tentacles? Or maybe there's some deep-rooted fear that my family is being controlled by aliens? Any ideas on that?
Have you even seen my fat cheeks?
Okay. this one shouldn't be as bizarre as the first two. Happy Tree Friends. I doubt this needs any introduction, but I'll give one anyway. Happy Tree Friends started as little shorts portraying cute anthropomorphic animals dying in horrifying and gruesome ways. I remember being 9 years old on the playground when a friend of mine pulled out his iPod Touch and showed me the episode Let It Slide. Well, basically ever since I saw this, I have had an irrational fear of dry water slides.
What?
A dry water slide is not the same as a regular slide. It can literally scrape all the skin off your body. I will never go on a water slide if the water is off. I'm going to switch things up now and go into some comics that traumatized me. Surprisingly enough, they're both from Transformers comics. Being a child in the early aughts, I watched the Armada, Energon, and Cybertron cartoons, and then 2007 hit and BAM! Michael Bay Transformers, Transformers Animated, and Transformers comics were in full swing. I remember going to a Barnes & Noble and seeing a Transformers comic on the stands. I was like, they have Transformers comics? So I bought Transformers All Hail Megatron #2, where the Autobots lose the war and are trapped on Cybertron, leaving the Decepticons free to conquer Earth. Little did I know, upon reading this comic, that I would see Frenzy emitting a frequency that would cause people to suffer from horrific delusions and nightmares, and then transform his hands into drills and turn the soldiers into ground beef. But I don't know what it was about this. Maybe it's the crazed look in Frenzy's eyes, maybe it's the horrified look of the soldiers, the jagged lines showing them losing their mind. We see the frequency like entering their heads, but for this guy it also enters his behind? What is that supposed to mean? I gotta give the creators credit. It was censored very well so that it still portrayed the horror of the event without even showing a single drop of blood. But part of me thinks it's the not showing that makes it scarier. Maybe I just have a very violent and overactive imagination. I think I've got problems.
I don't care.
There's one other Transformers comic from a couple years later that I want to talk about. Transformers Last Stand of the Wreckers. A brutal war story of basically the Suicide Squad of the Transformers universe. The Wreckers are an elite squad of Autobots who infiltrate a prison that was taken over by Decepticons. There are a lot of bots killed in this story, and some of the deaths and imagery have stayed with me for years. This is how issue 5 starts. Now, while this guy, Guzzle, survives getting ripped in half, he still got ripped in half. And then just a few pages later, this other Autobot named Pyro gets torn limb from limb. This one really got me. And that's the thing with Transformers comics. You can show as much gore as you want, but it doesn't matter because they're robots. So there's no need for censorship. Casual dismemberment, heads exploding from the inside out, bisection, getting ripped in half, getting your face ripped off, and let's not forget Bumblebee despining a dog. My imagination just takes over and I picture them as real living people. And I imagine what that pain must feel like. So even though it doesn't show blood and guts, I find myself reacting as if it were. But if that was the intention of the writers, then good job. In this same issue, we get a visual that may have unlocked a new fear in me. Impactor fires his harpoon into Overlord's eye, and as he pulls it out, we see multiple shards of broken glass falling out. And this just made me so uncomfortable. As someone who started using contacts when he was in 7th grade, anything to do with the eyes made me squirm. Imagine how that much glass in your eye would feel. Maybe this comic is the reason why I stopped wearing contacts. But yeah, I think that's it. So Doc, how would you diagnose me?
Pathetic.
Excuse me?
Why did you make me do this?
What kind of therapist are you? Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming with me on this therapy journey, exploring a bunch of the old media that traumatized me as a young lad. You know, let me know, what things did you read or watch that were like, meant for kids for the most part, but it's still something that you think about all these years later? I want to know. Where do your traumas come from? Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. This is Getting Geeky with Gabe, geeking off. Yeah, that's my new outro, I guess.